G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. I've just returned from Titanic, the Human Story exhibition at the Queen Street Mall in Brisbane. It's been an awesome experience and a great exhibition. The exhibition gives you a better understanding of the people that were on board. Just to make you all aware, the exhibition is about the human stories behind the tragedy and not the contents that were recovered from the wreck or the ship. It took me 3.5 hours to go through the entire exhibition, as there was a lot to observe and lots to see and lots to read as well. But even then, I had to rush at the end to go through the last part of the exhibition. Okay, the only things they recovered from the wreck at the bottom of the ocean and that was displayed at the exhibition were the tiny fragments of coal and also a metal piece from the ship body. So that's pretty much the two things they had displayed at the exhibition. The other items of interest were the deck chairs that were thrown into the sea when the ship was sinking for the passengers to use as a flotation device. And there were two sets of keys as well from the Turkish bath and the lantern cabinet. You will see in the video ahead what they were. Both these items were on the passengers. One of them survived and the other passenger died and his body was recovered. Majority of the items that are displayed in the exhibition are from the sister ship RMS Olympic. They were retrieved from that ship before it was being scrapped. RMS Titanic and RMS Olympic were sister ships and they were built at the same time. They were identical in passenger facilities, deck plans, fittings, and the technical design. Okay, without wasting any time, let's go through this exhibition with me for the next 75 minutes. I hope you will enjoy. Go and visit the exhibition. I guarantee you it's gonna be worth it. And if you're a Titanic fan, you're gonna absolutely love it. This is one of the 14 remaining cork and canvas lifebelts recovered, and one of the two still retaining the original stamps from the manufacturers Fosbury and Company. Here is a bit of an info on what the world looked like back in 1912. Is that Captain America's vibranium shield? In this illustration, you can see the grandmother of Europe, Queen Victoria, with her 9 children and 23 grandchildren. She hoped these marriages would keep Europe peaceful and Britain in power, but with her death in 1901, family ties began to weaken, and Europe soon faced a war between cousins. Here are some souvenirs from souvenir program of the Empire Day celebration in Hyde Park 1913. A bit more information about the era and how the old world was transitioning into the new one. Now this is interesting. Here's a novel called A Journey into Other Worlds, written by J.J. Esther. J.J. Esther was the richest man on the Titanic, and he had written a futuristic novel himself, imagining the year 2000 and all its fascinating possibilities. This is awesome. Poster shows the pyramid of capitalist system, which actually depicts the society of that time. Child labor was prevalent in 1900s. Children worked in factories, mines, and on farms, and in their homes, and they were also working on building ships as well. Some portraits of immigrants at the Ellis Island from 1905 to 1920. Not really relevant to the Titanic, but here it is. Here is the second class trunk that was used on a White Star Line steamer back in the 1920s. White Star Line was the manufacturer of the RMS Titanic. So the migration into America was happening since the 1850s. 30 million people had arrived in America by 1910. 22% of the labor force was foreign born. On the Titanic, there were not only Irish and British citizens, but also Scandinavian and Middle Eastern. There were farmers, doctors, butchers, and even popcorn vendors. For some, migration meant there was money to be made, and new shipping lines such as White Star Line was formed. By the 20th century, competition had led to improved travel conditions and cheaper tickets for these giant steel ships. Okay, so this is the White Star Line Travelers Check signed by Bruce Ismay from the 1880s. A bit more history about the White Star Line shipbuilding and how they produced ships over the years. Again, a bit more info on the White Star Line, which was the manufacturer of the RMS Titanic. Here are some promotional brochures of Olympic and Titanic. Keep in mind, Olympic and Titanic are the two sister ships made by the White Star Line. Some more souvenirs and promotional items from White Star Line. Here are some photos from the US migration station at the Ellis Island. The immigrants used to go through some health inspections and medical examination before they were made clear for migration. Okay, so this is the Island of Hope and Tears. This is the US immigration station on the Ellis Island that opened in 1892. This is the place where they used to process all the migrants. They used to check their status and health. First and second class migrants passed freely. The ticket price served as an indicator of their good health, and that they were unlikely to become a public charge. The original White Star Line flag from early 1920s. This is the bowl from HMS Britannica, pre-1915. This is a photo of Olympic and Titanic at the Errol Gantry in 1911. This is a fold-out cross-section illustration of both Olympic and the Titanic from 1911. These are the various decks on the ship. Some photos of the construction of the two ships. Okay, this right in front of you is a contemporary replica of one of the Titanic watertight doors. Watertight doors seal 16 watertight compartments in the boiler rooms. These could be lowered remotely by an officer on the bridge. They were designed so that even if 4 of these compartments were flooded, the weight would not affect the ship's stability. However, with Titanic, 5 compartments were fatally damaged that eventually resulted in sinking of the Titanic. Okay, this shows the selection of some of the maritime disasters that happened from 1811 up until today. Here is the prototype of Axel Mellon's davits that was also installed on the Titanic to lower the lifeboats. Alright, so this is the best part out of the entire exhibition for me. This is a novel called Futility or the Wreck of the Titan, written by Morgan Robertson. It was written in 1898, 14 years before the disaster happened. This novel tells the story of a fictional ship. It's called the Titan that sank after hitting an iceberg in North Atlantic without sufficient lifeboats. These uncanny coincidences only prove how sadly predictable accidents such as Titanic's were. Here's a bit of an info about the launch of the Titanic. Here are some of the photos of the launch and departure of Titanic from Belfast. Here is the original photo of the Titanic leaving Belfast on the 2nd of April 1912. Now you will find letters from the crew members and the passengers written to their loved ones. There are obviously originals that were preserved, and you can see it in the next few minutes. Here is the photo and some of the information about the captain of Titanic. His name was Captain Edward John Smith. Here is the Captain Smith's gold pocket knife that was given to his daughter Helen back in 1906. Here's the photo of the first officer, William Murdoch. Here is a letter from Officer Murdoch to his sister on the 8th of April 1912. Chief Engineer Joseph Bell. Here is the photo of the third officer, Herbert Pittman, and his button from his uniform. Pittman was one of the 4 officers to survive the sinking in the uniform from which this button was taken. Here is a letter from Chief Engineer Joseph Bell to Henry Shenton. Bell was interviewing engineers for the crew in Southampton 4 days prior to the sailing. In the letter, he turns down engineer Henry, who eventually thanked in part to this lucky decision, who lived to the age of 89, and gladly, fortunately for him, he never boarded the Titanic with Joseph Bell. Here's some info about the coal strike that was happening leading up to the launch of the Titanic. There was a coal shortage apparently during that time. So this is some of the coal recovered from the wreck of the Titanic. And also you will see there's a lamp that the miners used to use in the early 20th century. Plus there's a postcard that you will see at various places in the exhibition. This postcard was from second class passenger Percy Bailey to his parents on the 10th of April 1912. This map shows the origin of Titanic passengers. Majority of them came from UK and USA. This is interesting. Here is the ticket price for first, second, and third class on the ship. You can see the first class ticket was $4,350 back in 1912. So just to give you an idea, $4,350 can buy you 6 cars, or like the Ford T back in those days. $150 was the cabin price, which is a monthly salary of 6 public workers. Second class cabin would cost $60, which is an equivalent of buying 1 wedding dress. Third class ticket for a cabin would have cost $36. This was over a month worth of rent for a comfortable apartment in New York. And some more letters from the passengers and crews to the loved ones. Another postcard from another passenger, which we have already seen. This postcard you will find at numerous occasions during the exhibition. Here is a mini model of the Titanic showing the inside of the ship. You can see all the little details, the decks, and also the cabins and the suites and the rooms with all the furniture inside. So that was a very good Titanic model with all the details, which is worth seeing in real life. The video doesn't do any justice to what the model is and how in detail it's been made. Now I'm entering the replica of the hallway of the Titanic. It is actually the replica of the hallway in the Titanic movie, not the original, something I have noticed. Here's the first class deck plan. Here's the view of some of the general facilities in the first class. This is what the floor tile in the first class would have looked like. This is a contemporary recreation of Bruce Esmé's Promenade Suite. There were only two three-room deluxe parlor suites equipped with their own 15-meter promenade overlooking the ocean on Titanic. The one built on the port side cabin B-52 to B-56 was occupied by White Star Line's Bruce Esmé. And this is the bathroom of the Bruce Esme Promenade Suite. The dining area. This is the first class dressing table from Olympic. This is the mirror from the Olympic's first class smoking room. Again, keep in mind, Olympic and Titanic were sister ships and exactly alike. This is the painting from the grand staircase of Olympic. This wouldn't be the same as on the Titanic. Some photos of the first class dining area. Also, there were some notable passengers on board which were absolutely filthy rich. And here are some photos of those notable passengers on the ship. So this is the binocular and carry case of Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon. He was the most controversial passenger out of this entire tragic event. He is said to have bribed crew members to let him board one of the lifeboats before other women and children, and to not return to help even though their lifeboat was far from full. The menu and the binoculars demonstrate the leisure activities they engaged in after their survival. Some more information and photos of other notable passengers on Titanic. This is a dining saloon chair with original cushion from Olympic. some cutlery and dinnerware that was recovered from the wreck of Olympic. A la carte restaurant chair from Olympic wreck. So this is the green lace evening gown that was worn by the ladies at the dinner time on the Titanic. The picture of the smoke room from the Olympic. And here is the evening menswear and the children's sailor suit. Here is a photo of a 6-year-old Douglas Spedden who was photoed on the decks of the Titanic. Okay, so this is the second best part of the entire exhibition and one of the very few objects from the Titanic that were recovered. So this is a Titanic deck chair. This rare artifact was recovered from the water in the aftermath of the disaster. Titanic's Baker Charles Joughin claimed to have thrown 50 or more overboard as flotation devices during the sinking, and the first officer Murdoch was seen doing the same. This photo is of the Great Promenade on the A deck of the Titanic, the highest deck in the ship for passengers, which was accessible to first class only. So you can see number of deck chairs in the photo, which is similar to the ones in the glass case in front of this photo. And this is me with the only item that was recovered from the Titanic in this entire exhibition. Titanic also had a state-of-the-art gym equipped with electrical camels and horses, a squash court and a swimming pool. Also a lavishly styled Turkish bath complex fitted with saunas, a shampooing room and even an electric bath. Similar tiles of the Turkish bath and the swimming pool were on Titanic. These tiles were obviously recovered from the Olympics wreck. Okay, there are 4 photos. The first one on the top left is of the Olympic swimming pool. The second one on the top right is the Titanic's Turkish bath. The third one on the bottom left is of an illustration of Titanic's squash court. And the fourth one on the bottom right is of manager Thomas Macaulay in the Titanic's gymnasium. This is a frame montage of the items relating to Richard Norris Williams and Carl Bear, tennis players aboard on Titanic. This is the second class dining room entrance door from Olympic. Here are some of the photos of the general facilities in the second class of the Titanic. Here you can see the floor tile from the second class at the Olympic wreck. Also, the blanket was used in the second class. Second class dinner menu. Here is the photo and the story of one of the survivor family. There are some letters written by the passengers and also the survivors from the Titanic disaster. This is a story about the La Roche's family and the only black passenger on board. Here's an interesting story, photo and information about survivor, Lauren Beasley. He was a teacher from England traveling in second class, and during the movie, filming of the movie A Night to Remember in 1958, he is said to have crashed the set during the sinking scene, hoping to go down with the ship that time. And here is the book written by Lauren Beasley, a detailed and popular account of the journey and sinking, published just 9 weeks after the disaster. This is John Gill's body bag. As the bodies of Titanic victims were discovered, they were each identified with a number tag. Any personal belongings were held in a canvas bag with the same number. Mr. Gill was the 155th body to be recovered, but he was buried at sea. And this is the letter from White Star Line to the widow of John Gill, asking for £20 to cover the cost of returning her husband's body to England. This is the second class dining room chair from Olympic Wreck. Here is some chinaware and dinnerware from the second class area of the Olympic, which again was a sister ship to Titanic, and everything on the ship that was at Olympic was the same as on the Titanic. This is the barber shop and also the souvenir shop for the second class passengers on the ship. And we are on to the third class. And this was the railway ticket which was supposed to be sold on the Titanic had it made the return voyage, and it's for the passengers disembarking in Plymouth to take the train to London, but obviously that never happened. Some photos of the third class facilities on Titanic. Here is the menu from the third class that included breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper. Here is some of the dinnerware used in the third class dining area. Okay, so here are some of the items that were used in the third class. There is a White Star Line chamber pot, crew bunk bed ladder that was recovered from the Olympic wreck, and the third class blanket that was also intended for the Olympic. I'm entering the replica of the hallway of the third class. And this is a contemporary recreation of a 4-berth cabin on the Titanic in the third class. As you can see, it's very small and very less room for passengers, but obviously it was the third class area. So here are two of the items that were recovered from the passengers' bodies who drowned in this event. Here's a wallet from Moritz Adhal's body and a silver chain that was recovered from the body of Malcolm Johnson. These are the pictures of the 4 of the 6 Chinese passengers who survived this event. Very little is known about their fate, and after their rescue, they were shipped off to Cuba as sailors. This is the third class general room on the Olympic, and again, this was exactly mimicking what was on Titanic. Okay, so one of my favorite bits out of this exhibition, the Middle Eastern passengers. There are photos of the passengers that were from Syria. So this is the photo of Faraz Shihab, who was a professional musician who was on his way to New York to progress his career. Fluent in English, he reportedly translated for his countrymen everything that was happening during the catastrophe. His body was never identified. Here are some musical instruments that the third-class passengers of the Titanic brought with them onto the ship. Out of the 2,200 people on Titanic, 899 were not passengers but the crew members. Okay, so this is a photo of the Black Gang, the crew which was working in the boiler room to keep the ship running. That wasn't the best of the jobs and least enviable of the places to work in on the ship. So this is the second item which was recovered from the Titanic. These are the keys for Titanic's Turkish bath storage cupboard. Some selection of Titanic related postcards. And also the royal mailbox that was used on the White Star Line steamers. Here's the photo of the Mayor Clerk Oscar Woody, who perished with the ship. Here is the iron spade made from the hull of the Titanic. This was made by the father of an engineer who also drowned with the ship. You can also see the piece of the coal recovered from the wreck of the Titanic. Here is the nightgown and the portrait of second-class passenger Carolina Byström. She was visiting relatives in Sweden and was traveling back to her adoptive country on Titanic. Although little else is known about her actions and whereabouts up to the collision, she was rescued wearing the same nightgown. Here's a timeline of the event from 12th April to the 15th of April, how the disaster unfolded. Here's a big block of ice that was present in the exhibition for people to feel and touch how cold the glacier would have been on that night. Okay, these are the keys that were held by lamp trimmer Samuel Hemming. These keys opened the cabinet where the lanterns were kept. That night, Hemming assisted with lowering the lifeboats while provisioning them with lit lamps. Carrying 4 at a time, Hemming equipped the boats but did not board any himself. He was one of the few people to survive by being pulled out of the water. Simply amazing. Here's the photo and information about the Hart family. 7-year-old Eva Hart was meant to travel aboard SS Philadelphia with her parents, Benjamin and Esther, but the cold strike led them to Titanic. Here you can see Esther Hart's wallet and also Esther Hart's wedding rings from both marriages. Here are some of the photos and a replica of the wireless room where the desperate SOS calls were made to other ships in the surrounding area. Here are some of the items from the ship that rescued the survivors of Titanic. The ship was called Carpathia. And here are some photos and information about the inquiries and investigations that happened after the disaster. The document you see on the right hand side is a copy of the US inquiry transcript in 1912. So this is the boarding costume that was worn by Kate Winslet in the movie Titanic that came out in 1997. This was worn by Kate in the first scenes of the movie. Okay, so this writing on the wall is a bit ironic. For sale. One would think the polite Edvardian society would have refrained from exploiting the tragedy so soon, no matter how appealing. The truth is that everyone wanted a piece of Titanic right there and then, as much as we do today. From day one, Titanic was for sale. Postcards, prints, a musical dramatization for piano, a movie starring a survivor, and books promising thrilling images. Titanic is a bottomless well, and for more than a century, every product imaginable has made use of its image. Movies, books, and exhibitions, such as this one, prolong our fascination with the story of Titanic. And as you can see, some of the items here are made in very poor taste. But this is people do for money, unfortunately. And obviously there were lots of movies made across the world in different languages to benefit from this disaster. And here you will see the replicas of the Titanic wreck, how it sits in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean at the moment. There is obviously it was split into two, the bow and stern. They are at the bottom of the ocean, 600 to 800 meters apart. And yeah, there have been some visuals on the screen. You can see from the side. I can't show you because of proprietary reasons. And they will show you how it was captured by submersibles and submarines going down and taking video footage, and it looks exactly the same. This is a very good replica of the bow and the stern of the Titanic wreck. It's deteriorating very fast as corrosion taking its course, and it has sort of perished, so to speak, in the last 15 to 20 years because of obviously oxidation and corrosion that is happening on the metal. So finally, here it is. So one of the only pieces in the exhibition that is from the wreckage. This piece was recovered from the bottom of the ocean through the French submersible called Nautile that used the robotic arms to retrieve a number of artifacts from the wreck, and this was one of those pieces. So that's basically pretty much it. There have been other items that were recovered from the Titanic, but actually those items were either on the dead bodies or the survivors, or they were floating on the sea. But this piece is actually from the wreckage. So there you go. Okay, so this is pretty much the end of the exhibition. In this area, you will find the name of the passengers that survived and they drowned with the Titanic. You can see their crew members. They were first class passengers, second class passengers, and passengers from the third class. And this leads to the souvenir shop. So basically this is the end. I really enjoyed this exhibition and having a look at the items that were recovered from the Titanic and also the replicas. This exhibition was worth it, as you would have seen in the video as well. I highly recommend you guys to come and have a look before it is finished in Brisbane. I think the last day at this stage is 15th of March, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, go ahead and visit the exhibition and enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe my video. I've put in a lot of effort into this. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.